The rain lashed against the windows of the tiny apartment as Alex sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by printed bank statements and half-empty coffee cups. The glow from their laptop cast eerie shadows across walls still bare of decorations. They'd moved in exactly 37 hours ago after that final devastating conversation with their father. The numbers on screen told a satisfying story. 287,632, 19 nights now sat in an offshore account under the name A.L. Carter Consulting, every penny meticulously siphoned from various family accounts over the past 2 days. Alex's phone buzzed again, the 17th missed call from Emily today alone. They imagined their sister pacing the marble floors of their parents' mansion, that familiar pinch between her eyebrows deepening with each unanswered ring. Somewhere in the background, their mother was probably wailing about canceled charity galas, while Richard barked at some poor bank manager about account freezes. The mental image should have brought satisfaction, but instead, Alex just felt tired. The diner coffee from earlier churned in their stomach as they pulled up another financial document, Linda's secret jewelry fund, cleverly disguised as Linden Art Preservation Society donations. Alex's fingers hovered over the keyboard. They could drain this last account right now, watch the remaining pillars of their parents' carefully constructed facade crumble completely. But something made them pause. A memory surfaced, unbidden. 9-year-old Alex sitting at the kitchen counter, carefully wrapping a handmade birthday card for their father. The glitter glue was still drying when Richard came home, barely glancing at the card before tossing it on the pile with the others. That night, Alex had crept downstairs to find it in the trash, pristine except for one coffee stain obscuring the painstakingly written, "I love you." The laptop screen dimmed from inactivity. Outside, the rain intensified, pounding against the glass like it wanted to break through. Alex closed the banking portal with a decisive click and reached for their phone instead. 3 simple words typed out and sent before they could reconsider. "Let's talk. Tomorrow." The response came faster than expected. Not from Richard or Linda, but from Emily. Just an address and time. Noon, the old boathouse. Alex stared at the message, throat tight. The boathouse, where they'd played as kids before Emily decided she was too old for such childish things. Before the scholarships and the wedding plans and the unspoken hierarchy that placed Alex firmly at the bottom. Rain streaked the windows like tears as Alex packed up the documents, methodically shredding the most damning evidence. The money would stay where it was, for now. But tomorrow they'd finally look their sister in the eye and ask the question that had burned inside them for years. Was it worth it? The storm raged on into the night, but for the first time in months, Alex slept deeply, dreaming of calm waters and a rope bridge swaying gently in the wind. Tomorrow would come, and with it, whatever reckoning awaited them at the boathouse. But tonight, there was only this quiet moment between the thunderclaps, this fragile peace before the final confrontation. Morning light revealed the aftermath of the storm, broken branches littering the streets, puddles reflecting the pale sky. Alex dressed carefully in the outfit they'd originally planned to wear for their birthday dinner: navy slacks, the cashmere sweater Linda had given them last Christmas, the receipt still tucked in the pocket, revealing it was a last-minute purchase. The drive to the boathouse took them past familiar landmarks, the elementary school where Emily had been student council president, while Alex ate lunch alone in the library, the country club where Richard still played golf every Saturday, rain or shine. Each turn of the wheel felt like turning pages in a photo album they'd tried to forget. The boathouse looked smaller than Alex remembered, its white paint peeling, the dock sagging slightly. Emily stood at the far end, back turned, staring out at the lake. She didn't turn around when Alex's footsteps creaked on the old wood. "You came," she said, voice flat. Alex stopped a few feet away. "You knew I would." For a long moment, the only sound was the water lapping against the pilings. Then Emily turned, and Alex saw what the wedding photos had carefully airbrushed out. Dark circles under her eyes, a tremble in her carefully manicured hands. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Emily's voice broke on the last word. Alex expected to feel triumph. Instead, they just felt cold. "I gave you exactly what you gave me. Nothing." Emily's laugh was sharp as broken glass. Nothing? You call freezing Mom's cancer treatment fund nothing? The world tilted. What? The Linden Art account? Emily's eyes burned with tears. That wasn't for jewelry, you idiot. It was for Mom's clinical trial in Switzerland, the one insurance wouldn't cover. Alex's stomach dropped. They'd seen the transactions, $15,000 monthly payments to some medical facility, but assumed, you didn't know. Emily's voice turned dangerously quiet. Of course you didn't. Because you were so busy being the martyr, you never stopped to ask. The dock swayed beneath Alex's feet, all those carefully plotted revenge scenarios crumbling like ash. That's not true? Emily pulled an envelope from her purse and threw it at Alex's feet. Medical forms spilled out, Linda Carter's name bold across the top. Dad was going to tell you after your birthday. Guess that's off the table now. Alex bent to pick up the papers, hands shaking. The dates went back months. The diagnosis, rare, aggressive. The treatment, experimental. All those times Linda had snapped at Alex, all those canceled plans. Oh God. The words tore from Alex's throat. Emily turned back to the water. Mark left me this morning. Turns out his family wasn't thrilled about the bounce checks. Dad's lawyers are already talking about bankruptcy. And Mom, her voice broke. She won't even look at me. The medical forms blurred before Alex's eyes. Somewhere in the back of their mind, a tiny voice whispered that this could still be a trick, another manipulation. But the trembling in Emily's shoulders was too raw, the dates on these documents too far back to fake. Alex reached out, hand hovering awkwardly before settling on Emily's back. To their shock, their sister leaned into the touch, her quiet sobs shaking them both. What do we do now? Emily whispered. Alex looked out across the lake, where storm clouds still lingered on the horizon. The answer came surprisingly easy. We fix it. And for the first time in their lives, when Alex said we, they actually meant it. The alarm clock blared at 6:45 a.m., its shrill beep cutting through the stale air of the tiny studio apartment. Alex groaned, slapping at the offending device until silence fell. Sunlight streamed through the half-closed blinds, painting stripes across the unpacked boxes that littered the floor. Day 2 of their new life, if you could call this living. The smell of yesterday's takeout still lingered as Alex shuffled to the kitchenette, bare feet sticking slightly to the linoleum. The coffee maker sputtered to life, its familiar gurgle, the only comforting sound in this unfamiliar space. While it brewed, Alex checked their phone. 3 missed calls from Mom, 12 texts from Emily, and a single voicemail from Dad marked urgent. They deleted them all without listening. The first sip of coffee burned their tongue, but Alex welcomed the pain. It grounded them, reminded them this was real. The apartment lease, signed yesterday, under the name A.L. Carter, the new bank, account opened with the last of their personal savings, the quiet fury that had been simmering for years. All of it was real now. A stack of papers on the counter caught their eye, the documents they'd taken from Dad's study. Power of attorney. Forms, bank statements, investment portfolios. Alex traced a finger over the account numbers, their stomach tightening. They'd spent all night poring over these, connecting dots they'd been blind to for years. The private school tuition payments for Emily, the business expenses that always seemed to coincide with Mom's shopping sprees, the suspiciously large withdrawals before every family vacation Alex had been too busy with school to attend. The coffee turned to acid in their throat. A knock at the door startled them. Alex froze, coffee cup halfway to their lips. No one knew they were here. The knock came again, more insistent this time. Alex? I know you're in there. Emily's voice. Of course it was Emily. Alex considered not answering, but the pounding grew, louder. With a sigh, they crossed to the door but didn't open it. Go away. I can't. Emily's voice sounded strange, not her usual polished tone, but something raw and shaky. Please, just open the door. Against their better judgment, Alex turned the lock. The sight that greeted them was jarring. Emily, normally so put together, stood in the hallway with smudged mascara, her designer jacket wrinkled, hair piled in a messy bun. She held 2 Starbucks cups in trembling hands. "I brought coffee," she said, thrusting one toward Alex. "Your usual." Alex stared at the cup. A grand blonde roast with 1 sugar. How did she even remember? They hadn't gotten coffee together in years. Emily shifted uncomfortably under Alex's gaze. "Can I come in? Just for a minute?" The apartment seemed to shrink as Emily stepped inside, her designer heels clicking against the cheap flooring. She took in the bare walls, the unpacked boxes, the single chair at the rickety table. Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows drew together. "You're really doing this," she murmured, more to herself than to Alex. "Doing what?" Alex crossed their arms. "Existing?" Emily flinched. "You know that's not what I meant." She set her coffee down untouched. "Mom and Dad are freaking out. Dad's Amex got declined at his breakfast meeting, and Mom's spa appointment got canceled because her payment didn't go through." Alex sipped their coffee, savoring the bitterness. And? Emily's voice rose. "Alex, what did you do?" The question hung between them, charged like the air before a storm. Alex studied their sister, really studied her, for the first time in years. The faint lines around her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide, the nervous way she twisted the giant diamond on her left hand. The Emily who stood before them wasn't the golden child from their memories, but a tired-looking woman in her late 20s, scared and out of her depth. Alex made a decision. "Come here," they said, leading Emily to the laptop on the kitchen counter. With a few clicks, they pulled up a series of bank statements. "See these transfers? Every month for the past 5 years. From Dad's business account to some shell company called Linden Holdings." Emily frowned. "So, Dad's always moving money around for investments." "Right." Alex opened another tab. "And these? From Linden Holdings to your trust fund. Nearly $20,000. A month." Emily's face went pale. That can't be right." "Keep looking." Alex clicked through more documents. "Here's Linden paying your sorority dues, your Paris apartment lease, the down payment on your Mercedes." Their voice grew sharper with each example. "Meanwhile, I was taking out student loans to cover community college." Emily's hands trembled as she reached for the laptop. "There has to be an explanation." "There is." Alex leaned back, watching the realization dawn on their sister's face. "You were the investment, I was the write-off." The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, a car alarm wailed, then cut off abruptly. Emily's coffee sat forgotten, condensation forming on the cardboard sleeve. "I didn't know," she whispered finally. Alex believed her. That was the worst part. Emily stood abruptly, nearly knocking over her chair. "I need to talk to Dad." "Good luck with that." Alex smirked without humor. "His phones are probably getting shut off as we speak." Emily paused at the door, her hand on the knob. When she turned back, her eyes were wet. "I'm sorry, Alex, for everything." The door clicked shut behind her, leaving Alex alone with their coffee and the damning paperwork. They expected to feel triumphant, justice served at last. Instead, they just felt empty. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the quiet apartment. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Alex opened their laptop again and began typing. There were more accounts to freeze, more transfers to make. The game was just beginning. But as their fingers flew across the keyboard, one thought kept circling in their mind. Emily had remembered their coffee order. After all these years, she'd remembered. The realization hurt more than any betrayal. The rain came down in sheets as Alex sat hunched over their laptop in the dim glow of a 24-hour diner. The vinyl booth squeaked beneath them as they shifted, fingers flying across the keyboard. The third cup of diner coffee sat cooling, beside them, untouched since the first sip. It was terrible, but the waitress kept refilling it with a sympathetic smile that said she recognized someone running from something. Outside, neon signs reflected in the wet pavement, turning the world into a blur of red and blue. Alex's phone buzzed again. Another call from Dad, the 12th tonight. They silenced it without looking. The screen of their laptop showed a dizzying array of bank statements, each tab a different financial wound about to be inflicted. The waitress, a tired-looking woman with Marge stitched on her uniform, slid a plate of greasy fries across the table. "You look like you could use some real food, honey." Alex managed a weak smile. "Thanks." Marge lingered, wiping her hands on her apron. "You ain't in some kind of trouble, are you?" Alex glanced at the laptop, then back at the woman's kind face. "Not me," they said softly, "but someone else is about to be." As Marge walked away, shaking her head, Alex turned their attention back to the screen. The final piece was in place. All they had to do was hit enter. Their finger hovered over the key, heart pounding. This wasn't just freezing accounts anymore. This was liquidation. This was scorched earth. The first drops of rain had been falling when Alex left the apartment, the argument with Emily still ringing in their ears. Her words had burrowed under their skin like splinters. "You're being paranoid. Dad wouldn't do that." But the numbers didn't lie. The spreadsheets Alex had spent all night compiling painted a damning picture. 2 sets of books, hidden accounts, money funneled to Emily for years while Alex scraped by. A clap of thunder shook the diner windows. The lights flickered but held. Alex took a deep breath and pressed enter. Across town, in a penthouse office, Richard Carter's computer chimed with alerts. His face went slack as he saw the numbers. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." At the same moment, Linda's phone buzzed in her designer handbag as she sat at a charity luncheon. The notification made her blood run cold. "Your withdrawal of $50,000 has been processed." She hadn't made any withdrawal. And Emily, poor, clueless Emily, was mid-manicure when her credit card was declined. "There must be some mistake," she laughed nervously to the stylist. "Run it again." Alex watched the dominoes fall in real time through a series of frantic texts that lit up their phone. "Mom, 2:14 p.m. What have you done?" "Dad, 2:17 p.m. Call me now." "Emily, 2:23 p.m. "Alex, please answer me. My cards aren't working." The fries grew cold as Alex sat motionless, watching their family implode from a distance. They'd dreamed of this moment for years, fantasized about finally making them pay attention, making them feel even a fraction of the neglect they'd inflicted. So why did it feel so hollow? Marge refilled the coffee cup again, her eyes full of unasked questions. Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle. The storm was passing, but the real turbulence was just beginning. Alex closed the laptop with a quiet snap. The damage was done. There was no going back now. They left a 20 on the table, cash, always cash now, and stepped out into the damp afternoon. The air smelled of wet pavement and possibility. Somewhere in the city, their family was scrambling, panicking, finally seeing them for the first time in years. Alex turned up their collar against the lingering drizzle and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of umbrellas and hurried footsteps. Let them look. Let them wonder. The game had changed, and this time, Alex was making the rules. The morning light filtered through the blinds of Alex's tiny apartment, painting stripes across the scattered paperwork covering every available surface. They'd been awake for 36 hours straight, surviving on black coffee and cold pizza, tracing the intricate web of their father's financial empire through a maze of offshore accounts and shell companies. The numbers blurred before their tired eyes. $287,000 transferred so far, a mere fraction of what Richard Carter had siphoned away over the years. Alex rubbed their temples, the beginnings of a migraine pulsing behind their eyes. The phone on. The table buzzed again. Another unknown number. They'd stopped answering days ago. The voicemail box was full, the text notifications relentless. The family had gone from dismissive to desperate in record time. A sharp knock at the door shattered the silence. Not the polite rapping of a neighbor or the bored thud of a delivery person. This was urgent, insistent. Alex's pulse spiked, They crept to the door, peering through the peephole. Emily stood in the hallway, her usually pristine appearance in disarray. Hair pulled into a messy ponytail, no makeup, wearing sweatpants and an old college hoodie Alex recognized as their own, stolen years ago and never returned. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands shaking as she raised them to knock again. "Alex, please," she called through the door, her voice cracking. "I know you're in there." Alex hesitated. The smart move would be to stay quiet, to let her think they weren't home. But something in Emily's tone, raw and broken in a way they'd never heard before, made their fingers twitch toward the lock. The door swung open. Emily looked up, her face streaked with tears. "They're gone," she whispered. Alex blinked. "What?" "Mom and Dad." Emily's breath hitched. "They left, just packed bags and disappeared in the middle of the night." A cold sensation crept down Alex's spine. That wasn't part of the plan. Richard Carter didn't run from anything. He bulldozed through problems with lawsuits and intimidation. Emily pushed past Alex into the apartment, her gaze sweeping over the chaos of documents and empty coffee cups. "Jesus," she muttered. "You really went full vigilante, didn't you?" Alex closed the door slowly. "You have no idea." Emily sank onto the couch, her hands twisting in her lap. "The police came to the house this morning. They had questions about Dad's business accounts, something about wire fraud and—" She swallowed hard. "Embezzlement." The word hung between them. Alex had suspected, of course. The numbers never added up right, but hearing it confirmed sent a jolt through them. Emily looked up, her eyes searching Alex's face. "Did you know?" Alex didn't answer. They crossed to the kitchenette, pouring 2 glasses of water with hands that only shook slightly. Emily accepted the glass but didn't drink. "Mark left me," she said quietly. "His parents freaked out about the financial instability." She barked a humorless laugh. "Turns out true love has a credit score minimum." Alex studied their sister, really studied her, for the first time in years. The perfect facade had cracked, revealing someone vulnerable beneath, someone human. "Why are you here, Em?" Emily's fingers tightened around the glass. "Because I found something." She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "In Dad's office before the police took everything. I thought you should see it." Alex took the paper, unfolding it carefully. It was a bank statement dated 15 years ago. The account was under their mother's name, but the transactions made Alex's blood run cold. Monthly deposits from an unfamiliar company, each one labeled ALC Trust. Alex's initials. "This can't be right," Alex murmured, tracing the numbers. "I was 12. Emily's voice was barely audible. "Keep reading." At the bottom of the statement, a final transaction stood out. A withdrawal of the entire balance, nearly $250,000. The date matched the week Alex had been pulled out of private school and enrolled in public. The memo line read, "Emily's tuition, Sacred Heart Prep." The room tilted. Alex gripped the edge of the counter as years of memories rearranged themselves. Mom's tight-lipped explanations about budget cuts, Dad's dismissive comments about building character at public school. All while Emily got the designer clothes, the summer programs, the shiny new car at 16. Alex had always assumed it was favoritism. This was theft. Emily was crying in earnest now, tears dripping onto her borrowed hoodie. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear I didn't know." Alex stared at the paper, their vision blurring. All this time they'd thought they were fighting for recognition, for fairness. But this was something darker. A new alert popped up on Alex's laptop, a news notification. The headline made their stomach drop. Prominent local businessman Richard Carter wanted for questioning an alleged multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Emily saw it too. She made a small, broken sound. "What do we do now?" Alex looked at their sister, really looked at her, and saw not the golden child, but another victim of Richard Carter's manipulations. The anger that had fueled them for weeks shifted, morphing into something colder, more focused. We find them, Alex said, closing the laptop with a snap. And we make them answer for all of it. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across the cluttered apartment. The game had changed again, and this time the Carter siblings were playing together. The safe house smelled like stale cigarettes and lemon disinfectant. Alex wrinkled their nose as they stepped inside, the worn floorboards creaking underfoot. Emily hovered in the doorway, clutching a duffel bag stuffed with whatever she'd managed to grab before the media circus descended on their parents' mansion. "Charming," Emily muttered, eyeing the stained couch. Alex tossed their keys on the rickety kitchen table. "It's not the Ritz, but the Wi-Fi's decent and the landlord doesn't ask questions." Emily set her bag down gingerly, as if afraid it might contaminate her. "How long have you had this place?" "Since I started digging into Dad's finances." Alex pulled the blinds shut, casting the room into murky twilight. "Figured I might need a bolt hole eventually." A silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken questions. The news played quietly on Alex's laptop. Another segment about their father's disappearance. The words white-collar crime and fugitive flashing across the screen. Emily sank onto the couch, her designer jeans looking absurdly out of place against the thrift store upholstery. "Where do you think they went?" Alex shrugged. "Caymans? Switzerland? Dad's got properties we probably don't even know about." They opened the fridge, bare except for a six-pack and takeout containers. "You hungry?" Emily shook her head, then reconsidered. "Actually, yeah. I haven't eaten since..." She trailed off, her fingers worrying the hem of her shirt. Since their world imploded. Since the police raids and the frozen accounts and the reporters camped outside her marital home. Since she'd become a Carter in name only, just like Alex. Alex tossed her a protein bar from their go bag. "Bon appétit." Emily caught it with a grimace. "This is expired. Only by 6 months." Alex cracked open a beer. "So, you ready to tell me what else you found in Dad's office?" Emily stiffened. "What makes you think..." "Please." Alex took a long swig. "You've been twitchy since you got here." "And that?" They pointed at Emily's duffel. "You packed in under 5 minutes, but you grabbed Mom's jewelry case." "Why?" Emily's carefully constructed composure cracked. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small velvet box, the kind that usually held wedding rings. But when she opened it, there was only a USB drive nestled in the satin lining. "I didn't want to show you until I knew what was on it," she admitted. "But then the police came, and..." Alex snatched the drive, plugging it into their laptop before Emily could finish. The screen flickered, then displayed a single folder labeled ALC. Their initials again. The first file was a scanned document, a trust fund agreement dated the day Alex was born. The numbers made their breath catch. 2.3 million? Emily peered over their shoulder. That's your college fund, your trust." "Grandma left it for you." Alex scrolled frantically. Statement after statement showed the money being slowly drained, $50,000 here, $100,000 there, always with the same memo line. Business investment. The final document was a notarized letter, signed by both parents, dissolving the trust entirely when Alex turned 18. The date matched the week Alex had been told there wasn't enough money for anything beyond community college. Emily made a small wounded noise. "I had no idea." Alex's vision tunneled. All those years of scraping by, working 2 jobs through school, watching Emily jet off to Europe on spring break. The last file was a video. Alex clicked play before they could think better of it. The footage showed their father's office. Richard Carter sat behind his mahogany desk, facing a man Alex recognized. Senator Jameson, a family friend who'd attended every Carter birthday and graduation. "The offshore accounts are secure," Richard was saying. "The auditors will never find them." The senator leaned forward. "And the trust funds?" Richard waved a hand. "Taken care of. The boys was liquidated years ago. The girls stays untouched. Of course," he smirked. "We need to keep up appearances." The video cut out. Alex's hands shook so badly they nearly dropped the laptop. Emily had gone deathly pale. "My trust," she whispered. He said, "But that's my down payment. My..." She bolted for the bathroom, retching. Alex stared at the frozen video frame, their father's smug face filling the screen. Every childhood slight, every missed birthday, every time they'd been made to feel like an afterthought. It all made sickening sense now. They weren't the black sheep. They were the mark. Emily emerged, wiping her mouth with a trembling hand. What do we do? Alex closed the laptop with deliberate calm. The rage that had carried them this far had crystallized into something colder, sharper. We find them, Alex said, and we take everything. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance. Somewhere in the world, Richard and Linda Carter were sipping champagne on a beach, confident they'd outsmarted everyone. They hadn't counted on both their children coming for them. Alex handed Emily a beer. Welcome to the dark side, sis. Emily took it, her fingers steadying as she cracked it open. The clink of their bottles touching was the sound of a new alliance. The Carter kids were done being pawns. It was time to play the game their way. The private investigator's office smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Alex sat across from Marty Kowalski, a grizzled ex-cop with a nicotine habit and a reputation for finding people who didn't want to be found. Emily fidgeted beside them, her manicured nails tapping an uneven rhythm on the armrest. Marty squinted at the photo of their parents. You sure they left the country? Alex slid a file across the desk. Private jet to Nassau last Tuesday. Fake passports. Emily added, There's a wire transfer here, $300,000 to a shell company called Blue Water Holdings. Her voice wavered. That's my trust fund money. Marty whistled through his teeth. Your old man's got style, I'll give him that. He flipped through the documents. What do you kids want from me? Alex leaned forward. Find them before the FBI does. The safe house felt different with Marty's team coming and going. Burly men with earpieces and laptops full of shady software. Emily had turned the kitchen into a war room, her designer clothes swapped for sweatpants, her hair piled in a messy bun. Alex watched her cross-reference offshore accounts with flight manifests. The Emily who'd never balanced a checkbook was now tracing money through 3 shell companies. You're getting good at this, Alex said. Emily didn't look up. Turns out I like burning Dad's empire to the ground. Day 7 brought their first break. Marty burst in, smelling like cigarettes and victory. Got 'em. He threw a grainy photo on the table, their parents boarding a yacht in the Bahamas. Meet the serendipity, registered to Blue Water Holdings. Emily's hands shook as she zoomed in. That's Mom's necklace, the Cartier we lost in the burglary last year. Alex's phone buzzed, an alert from the banking app they'd hacked. A $50,000 charge at a Nassau jewelry store. They're not even hiding, Alex muttered. Marty cracked his knuckles. What now, kids? Alex and Emily exchanged a look. We go get our money back, they said in unison. The private plane was Emily's idea. Mark's divorce lawyer hasn't frozen his assets yet, she said, typing furiously. I still have access to his family's jet. Alex raised an eyebrow. That's evil. Emily smiled for the first time in days. I learned from the best. Nassau hit them with a wall of humidity. Alex adjusted their sunglasses, scanning the marina. The serendipity gleamed in its slip, a 100-foot monstrosity with a helipad. Emily's breath caught. That's my trust fund. Marty's contact, a wiry Bahamian named Desmond, approached. Bad news. They cleared customs this morning, headed to Saint-Tropez. Alex's phone buzzed. Another alert, $200,000 spent at a French winery. Emily's laugh was sharp as broken glass. They're treating this like retirement. Alex turned to Desmond. How fast can you get us to France? The flight gave Alex too much time to think. They stared at the banking record scrolling across their laptop, the money draining from accounts almost as fast as they could track it. Emily slumped in the seat beside them. Remember when we were kids? That summer Dad taught me to water ski, Alex? Snorted. You mean the summer I got stuck in tennis camp because someone needed private coaching? Emily winced. I didn't know. That's the problem, Alex cut in. You never asked. The plane hit turbulence, shaking them into silence. Saint-Tropez was all blinding white buildings and obscene wealth. The serendipity was docked at the VIP pier, surrounded by security. Marty whistled. Your folks upgraded. Emily's eyes narrowed. With my money. Alex spotted their mother first, Linda lounging on the sun deck in a wide-brimmed hat, sipping champagne like she hadn't a care in the yow. World rage burned through Alex's veins. Time to crash the party. The confrontation happened at a waterfront cafe. Richard looked up from his lobster thermidor to find his children standing over him. His fork clattered to the plate. Alex? Emily? His tan paled. What are you? Emily dropped a stack of bank statements on the table. We're here to collect. Linda's champagne flute slipped from her fingers. Darling, whatever you've heard, save it, Alex snapped. They turned to their father. 2 options, you wire back every penny you stole from us by sunset, or we give the FBI these. They tossed down the USB drive. Richard's eyes darted to the marina, to the yacht, to escape. Emily smiled sweetly. Try it. I already emailed copies to Interpol. The money hit their accounts at 5:58 p.m. Alex watched the balance notifications roll in. Their trust fund restored, Emily's inheritance intact, even the missing cancer treatment funds reappearing. Marty clapped them on the back. Kids today. No respect for their elders. Emily was already on the phone with Swiss bankers. Alex stared at the serendipity, where their parents were being escorted off by French police. Not for the embezzlement, but for the fake passports. A small justice, but satisfying. Emily hung up. The money's safe. What now? Alex slung an arm around their sister. Now we go home. And then, Alex smiled. Then we spend our trust funds. The Mediterranean sunset painted the water gold as the Carter siblings walked away. Not as victims, not as rivals, but as partners in crime. The game was over. They'd won. The Swiss bank vault door hissed open with the sound of money breathing. Alex stepped inside, their new custom-made shoes silent on the marble floor. 6 weeks had passed since Saint-Tropez, 6 weeks of frozen assets thawing, of legal battles, quietly disappearing, of their parents slinking back to the States to face a reckoning without their stolen fortune. Emily stood at a glass display case, running a finger along the edge. It's smaller than I imagined. Alex joined her, staring at the safe deposit box that held what remained of the Carter family legacy. The banker had been very clear. This was all that was left after the lawsuits, the fines, the asset seizures, the wire. Lock clicked. Emily lifted the lid. Empty. Not a single stock certificate, not one gleaming gold bar. Just a folded piece of paper resting at the bottom like a punchline. Alex snatched it up, unfolding it with hands that shook. If you're reading this, you've earned it. Their father's handwriting. Emily made a strangled noise. What the hell does that mean? Alex turned the paper over. On the back, coordinates were scrawled in the same familiar script. The private jet this time was Alex's, purchased with a fraction of their reclaimed trust fund. Emily stared out the window at the clouds below, her reflection superimposed over the endless blue. You think it's a trap? Alex checked the coordinates again. Dad doesn't think that way. To him, this is all just game theory. The island appeared suddenly, a speck of green in the Caribbean. As the plane descended, a shape resolved itself along the shoreline, a mansion, modern and angular, all glass and steel. Emily's breath fogged the window. That's new. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Ms. Carter, air traffic control says we're expected. Of course they were. The house was empty, but not abandoned. Alex's footsteps echoed through the great room, their eyes catching unfamiliar touches, the Eames chair from Dad's study, Mom's favorite Picasso sketch hanging in the breakfast nook. Emily stopped dead in front of a family photo, the 4 of them at Disney World, Alex's 13th birthday. Except in this version, someone had carefully cut Alex out of the picture, leaving just a child-shaped hole. Classy, Alex muttered, a sound from the terrace. They moved as one, shoulders brushing, no longer rivals but comrades in arms. Richard. Carter sat at a teak dining table, sipping espresso as if they'd arrived exactly on schedule. He looked older without his usual tan, his polo shirt hanging slightly loose. Kids? He didn't stand. Took you long enough. Emily's voice could have chilled the tropical air. Where's Mom? Geneva. Richard set down his cup. She always liked the shopping there. Alex dropped the note on the table. We're here. Now what? Richard smiled, the same smile he'd used to charm investors and judges. Now we negotiate. The terms were simple. The house and its contents in exchange for dropping the remaining civil suits. The offshore accounts, what was left of them, for guaranteed silence to the press. The coordinates to one final account. Seed money, Richard called it, in exchange for never seeing him or Linda again. Emily laughed incredulously. You think we'll just let you walk away? Richard leaned back, the sun glinting off his Rolex. I think you're smart enough to know when you've won. Alex studied their father, really studied him. The tremor in his left hand, the way his gaze kept darting to the horizon. The great Richard Carter was afraid, and he should be. They walked the property as the sun set, Richard pointing out features like a real estate agent. The infinity pool, the private dock, the panic room disguised as a wine cellar. Emily stopped at the master suite. This is Mom's jewelry. She lifted a diamond necklace from the dresser. The pieces she claimed were stolen. Richard didn't flinch. Insurance fraud was always her specialty. Alex stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the tide roll in. Why? For the first time, Richard looked tired. Because I could. Simple as that. The transfer happened at dawn. Richard handed over the deeds, the account numbers, the keys to his kingdom. Emily took the documents, her hands steady. We're keeping the house. Richard boarded the waiting yacht without looking back. Alex watched him go, expecting to feel triumph or rage or something. Mostly they just felt free. The safe deposit box in the panic room contained exactly one thing. A childhood photo of Alex and Emily building a sandcastle, back before the eye. Money got complicated, on the back, in their mother's handwriting. We should have loved you better. Emily made a small, wounded sound. Alex took the photo and placed it carefully in their wallet. Some debts could never be repaid. Some lessons were worth learning. Epilogue. The New York Times headline read, Carter family feud ends with whimper, not bang. The photo showed Richard and Linda boarding a private jet to parts unknown, their smiles tight but intact. Alex folded the paper and set it aside, turning back to the blueprints for the new youth center, the one being built on the site of Dad's old office tower. Emily entered, sunburnt and smiling, holding 2 glasses of champagne. To fresh starts? Alex clinked their glass. To better games. Outside, the ocean stretched endlessly toward the horizon, blue and boundless and full of possibility. The credits rolled, the screen went dark. Somewhere, a new story was beginning. The first frost of winter crunched under Alex's boots as they walked through the iron gates of the Carter Family Foundation's new headquarters. The building, a sleek glass structure where their father's old office tower once stood, glowed against the gray December sky. 6 months had passed since the island, since the final transfer of assets, since their parents had vanished into whatever gilded exile awaited them. The press had moved on to fresher scandals. The lawsuits had been settled. The money, at last, was theirs. And yet, Alex pushed through the revolving doors, nodding at the security guard, a former Marine named Ruiz who Emily had personally vetted. The lobby echoed with construction noises, workers putting the final touches on the interior before next week's grand opening. A massive plaque dominated the far wall, its inscription still covered by a drop cloth. The A.L. Carter Youth Center. Emily stood on a ladder nearby, directing the placement of a modern art installation, a twisted metal sculpture that looked to Alex's eye like a broken crown. You're late, Emily called without turning around. Alex checked their watch. By 3 minutes. Late. Emily climbed down, dusting her hands on her jeans. She looked different these days, less polished, more real. Her hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, her sweater sleeves pushed up to reveal the tattoo she'd gotten on a whim in Ibiza, a tiny crown with a crack running through it. The architect's waiting upstairs. And before you ask, no, we're not adding a rooftop pool. Alex smirked. Worth a shot. The elevator ride to the top floor was silent. Emily tapped her foot, her gaze fixed on the ascending numbers. Alex studied their reflection in the brushed steel doors, the sharp cut of their tailored suit, the glint of the simple silver watch they'd bought with their own money. No trust funds, no hidden accounts. Just the salary they paid themselves, as co-directors of the foundation. The doors slid open. The architect, a young woman with a pixie cut and a no-nonsense demeanor, stood before a scale model of the center. Final walkthrough, she said, handing them each a tablet. Any last changes need to be submitted today. Alex scrolled through the schematics. Dormitories for homeless teens, classrooms, a medical clinic, all funded by the carefully managed remains of the Carter fortune, now locked away in airtight trusts even they couldn't break. Emily pointed to the rooftop garden. We're adding more benches here. Kids should have space to sit and think. The architect nodded, making a note. Alex's phone buzzed. A notification from their banking app, a transfer from an unknown numbered account, $10,000. The memo line read, "Happy birthday." They stared at it, their chest tight. Their birthday wasn't for months. Emily glanced over. What? Alex showed her the screen. Emily's expression darkened. She pulled out her own phone, tapped a few times, then showed Alex her screen. An identical deposit. Same memo. The architect cleared her throat. Everything okay? Alex pocketed their phone. Fine. Let's keep going. The safe arrived that afternoon. A massive, old-fashioned thing hauled in by movers under Emily's watchful eye. She'd found it in the basement of the island house, hidden behind a false wall. Inside had been stacks of documents, deeds, bonds, and a single envelope addressed to both of them. They waited until the movers left, until the office was empty, before opening it. A single sheet of paper. 2 sentences. The game was never about the money. It was about whether you'd become us. Emily laughed, sharp and sudden. Jesus Christ, even now he's testing us. Alex folded the note carefully. What do you think he wants us to do? Keep it? Give it back? Emily looked around the half-finished office, at the blueprints for the center, at the lives they were trying to rebuild. For themselves. For others. She took the note from Alex's hands and fed it into the shredder. Think, she said. We've already answered him. Winter deepened. The youth center opened to press fanfare and a surprise visit from the mayor. Alex gave a speech they'd practiced for weeks. Emily charmed the donors with her easy smile. That night, they sat on the roof of their shared loft, a far cry from the penthouses of their childhood, passing a bottle of cheap wine back and forth. Do you ever wonder where they are? Emily asked, her breath fogging in the cold air. Alex took the bottle. Sometimes. A plane crossed the starless sky, its lights blinking. Somewhere out there, their parents were living whatever life they'd chosen. Somewhere the game continued. But not here. Alex handed the wine back. Next project's the food bank in Queens. Emily grinned. Race you to the $1 million mark? They clinked the bottle against the rooftop ledge. Somewhere a new story was beginning. And this time, they'd write it themselves. The end.